Dancing around the edges of the discussion of the new D&D edition were arguments about how the game's race mechanics represented an endorsement of bioessentialism, which is a term for the belief in the nature side of things rather than the nurture. This sprung out of the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything book, in which racial features could be switched out with others, allowing characters to fully customize their character's quote-unquote race, so placed in quotes, because if so, then you are not even playing a particular race anymore, you are just making up bullshit and picking whatever stats you want in order to min-max your character. This just leads to stat bloat in an already bloated system, where every race gets all bonuses and no penalties to ability scores, because anything else would hurt people's feelings. It's truly pathetic, but it's what modern D&D players seem to want. And it also hints at something deeper, a fundamental conflict within the system itself that will require such work to excise as to strip the game entirely of its identity in doing so, a fatal surgery performed by the daft hands of coastal sodomites. At the core of Dungeons & Dragons are bioessentialist assumptions, the idea that you roll randomly for ability scores that determine your inborn traits has been part of the game since its creation. And in those times, those scores did not improve with level. They were set in stone, descriptive of who you were. While this isn't realistic, especially for scores like strength that could vary widely throughout a person's life, they speak to something that would unsettle your average leftist. Not every character's scores add up to the same number. Some characters have 2 or 3 stats at 18. Some characters have scores all in the single digits. The genetic lottery is merciless. Over time, this was replaced with plentiful ability score improvements, to the point that the original rolls for stats were all but vestigial, as every fighter character would have enough improvements to hit the cap of 20 by the time they were high level. It was suggested to ignore low rolls, which is fine to an extent, but before long rolling was subverted by point buy, and the entire structure of the ability score system became pointless. But still there under it all were the remnants of the bioessentialist mindset D&D was based on. One where the strong survive and the weak perish, and sometimes vice versa. Why is this such anathema to leftists who profess to believe in evolution, if only as a cudgel against the Christians they hate, and for the wrong reasons? It is because they don't want it applied to humans. It goes against their hyper-egalitarian worldview. They do not really like the world of D&D, a setting where your inborn traits matter as much as anything, where the ultimate authority is violence, and nakedly so, and violence is a tool, a world of slavery and woe before it was scrubbed from the game by SJW censors. They cannot fathom a world where some sorts are inherently evil and cruel, where some cultures are inferior to others, despite myriad examples of this occurring in the real world. In fact, they cannot imagine a morality contrary to our own, or at least to their own. Any sort of speculative fiction is dangerous to them because it might challenge their bizarre, presumptuous precepts and axioms. The simple fact is, genetics matter, morality matters, and not everything is the arbitrary way that these freaks think it is. The game that they so happily colonized in order to live out their narcissistic fantasies, ones that bear a striking resemblance to some Harry Potter LARP. Ironic because of how much they now hate that book series for irrational reasons. The game that they so happily colonized to live out these retarded fantasies has no compatibility with their ethos. Its very rules scream against their insane worldview, so they struggle to bend it into shape, out of its intended form. Even the rules and law from 10 years ago is problematic now. Many spoke out against the sanitization and politicization of D&D back then, but were ignoring, either by shills or by phobotarian fucks who couldn't be asked to do anything to protect themselves. As a result, the D&D hobby has been ruined, frankly. Even the old-school Renaissance movement has been invaded, but at least we can take some small comfort in knowing that, in order to twist Dungeons & Dragons into what the social justice Marxist Bolshevik freakshit crowd want it to be, they were forced to utterly destroy it, scour it clean, and remake it as some twisted reflection of what it once was. All the pathetic cope of, well, we can just play old editions, is really going to come true. Even the re-releases of the basic D&D set are full of trigger warnings for the mere presence of a class called Fighting Men, or mentions of the women have -4 strength meme. That is how weak these people are. Take heart in that.